All right. I was talking with a couple of folks on Twitter about a little bit about my time in the shelter and how they are. So I figured I'd do another YouTube video about it. Basically, there's a lot of layers to the abuse that goes on of people who are homeless. And they really do kind of need to be gone through, I think, because for people who don't understand, it's not just one entity, it's not just one layer, it's a multi-layered, multifaceted problem. On the one hand, you have the security, okay, and in theory they're supposed to be there, as I understand it anyway, to prevent you from taking in things that are definitely going to hurt other people, like guns, okay, and that therefore, shouldn't be in there, big knives and things like that. But mainly as well, they're designed to be there as well, in theory, to keep the peace between residents. What in reality, though, for the most part, they're there to do is to make sure that the residents don't go after / kill the administrators or direct service providers, as in the social workers, whatever you want to call them, that are in the shelter, or caseworkers, whatever you want to call them, and therefore that's really what you're dealing with in terms of what security is really there to do. And because reality is, again, it's pretty rare that a fight will actually break out among a general group of residents. And also, by the way, they're also there, and this is a true thing, in the case of where we were, which was a family shelter, of couples / pairs of people that they weren't a solid couple to begin with, and therefore there was a abuse situation, or they basically paired up just to survive the shelter system together as opposed to being separate. And although I have to say, eventually, if you're in the shelter system long enough, you could be a wonderful couple, and you're still going to end up, fighting. Not to the point of necessarily violence, which, oh boy, did I hear it and did I see it at times, between couples, but, you're going to yell, you're going to scream, because you're pushed to your absolute breaking point. Then, of course, and again, there's layers of administrators, there's social workers, there's lead staffers, okay, and at every point along the way, and then there's, in terms of when the shelter system, then there's a more centralized location where the shelters are managed, and in theory there are advocates there, and that are supposed to deal with individual shelters in terms of managing their issues. And in theory, the advocates there, just like with other outside advocates, they're supposed to help the resident deal with legitimate issues of the individual shelter breaking rules. In reality, they really don't do that all that much. What they do is, if you bring a lawyer into the picture, they'll deal with the lawsuit to some extent, but that's about it. Beyond that, they're there for the semblance of order, and they don't actually do much. You deal with the concept of food vendors, because most of the shelters, they are in theory, they're supposed to provide you with 3 meals a day. And often they don't actually do so, or if they do, it's not something that you can actually eat. Legally, just as with a prison, they're supposed to give you meals in line with your religious and or medical dietary accommodations, dietary needs. In reality, they almost never do either one. That's one of the reasons that I got sores on my joints from malnutrition. That's one of the reasons that my husband went to the ER a couple of times, because of colitis and kidney issues resulting from the fact that he basically ate all of the food. Once had to have an argument with a staffer over the concept that beef cooked should not be green. And I wish I was kidding. I'm not. It's a mess. And then you get advocacy agencies who, some of them are really good people, but they all point fingers at each other, often at the shelter, sometimes at you, and then sometimes you'll get advocacy agencies that are outside of the shelter pointing fingers at each other, saying, no, you need to go to there, no, you need to go to there, no, you need to go to there. And by the time you're done going through all that, or even halfway through, you might find that you're better off if you just stayed put and waited it out, because you'll have gotten yourself into a hell of a lot less trouble, and you'll have survived the experience with a lot less scars. And that's one of the reasons that often people don't fight all that much. Because I know they're dealing with a lost cause. So they take from wherever they can, whenever they can, and they trudge through it. And keep in mind, and again, a lot of people say, oh, well, there's not enough money. We need to put in more money, more money. No. No. Not more money. We need to put in rights that are actually upheld. The buffoons were getting about $10,000 a month to properly house and feed us 3 meals a day. $2,500 a month was being spent on our meals for 3 frozen entrees, well, 2 frozen entree meals, in lunch and dinner, recooked and sometimes given to us frozen salad. In terms of like fish, I mean, again, I'm putting it with a fork and ice comes out when I say frozen. Other times burnt to the point of black. Same thing of fish, because that was the only thing. I'm like, kosher style, there's no such thing as a kosher slaughtered fish, so that was one thing that I ate. I never eat fish, and as a general rule, because of the heavy metals. And at this point, the radiation from Fukushima, and Indian Point. But so there's the layers of the corruption from the food vendors. There's the layers of the corruption from the staffers. The shelter that I was in, one of the lead administrators embezzled, as in he took money orders and from the safe and or cash, because he was the only one with a combination, and just plain stole it. Millions of dollars. Okay? And he still, as I understand it, he never even got fired. And so then you get the small scale things of the guards looking the other way and or being paid to look the other way as another person gets stomped on, or as another person comes in and sells drugs. Okay? So you've got, and then of course at the administrative level up high in terms of the advocacy level, you get all the advocates that are in essence on the take for looking the other way as all of this abuse occurs. And then in terms of the advocacy agencies, there's so many of them that there's no even way of trying to tell them apart in terms of trying to figure out which is the worst, because really just the fact that there are so many of them should indicate that they're all a mess. And so once you get through all that, and then you get to the fact that in return, by the way, for all these, get $2,400, you get the federal level in government benefits removed dramatically from you. So in theory, the state is saving the federal government a little bit of money. In reality, they're saving it to torture you and to waste a whole lot of city and state money and private donations. So for those who believe that there's not enough money being spent on people who are homeless, people who are in need, oh, hell no. There's too much money being spent. Way too much. And it's being spent for people that are on the take all the way up and down the food chain, just so that we could continue with the status quo, pretending that everything is going to be okay, when it's not. People are dying along this route. And people are going to keep dying until this is radically transformed. Universal basic income is one part of the equation, to me. But again, the bigger thing is for people to look around their communities and see what they can do. See what they can do to help. Look around to see where your local intake center is. Look around to see where your local homeless shelter is, your local drop-in center, and see if you could give something basic. And I'm not saying that necessarily that's money. Sometimes it's, hey, can I help you get your bag onto the bus or train? And frankly, there were a bunch of people that did that for my husband and I. They were the people that in the end were the difference between life and death for us. And again, these were not people that gave us money. These were people that saw me and my husband with these big bags, seeing that we were really not capable of handling it, and saying, hey, can I lift this up the stairs for you? And doing it. Those were the people, strangers, that saved our lives. They really did, because otherwise we wouldn't have made it through without them. So keep your eyes open, because again, that doesn't take income, that doesn't take a lot of money. That takes you looking around and seeing if someone needs a hand, offering and saying, okay, let me help you get this. And waiting for them to come up the stairs or waiting for them to come down the stairs. So there's big problems, there's small problems, there's big ways to help, there's small ways to help. They're all important. Find something, though, for those that hear this, for those that see this, and do it. Because really, at this point, unfortunately, the only thing that I could do is I could share information, but to me, that's a small part. So look around, find it. Find that one thing that you could do. Offer someone a bench when you see that they're ready to, they look like they're ready to collapse. Offer someone your seat. Again, offer someone a hand with their bag. Yeah, again, food, money. Yeah, I get that, and I understand why people are not comfortable with giving money. But there's, to me, no reason why, if you're physically strong, you can't help someone up, or down a flight of stairs with a bag. And make sure that they get it. So again, big problems, small problems. But keep your eyes open, because again, there's always ways to help. Shalom.